Hey everybody! Today I'm going to talk to you about a skill we all need to be good at, which is persuasion. Basically, that means being able to get what you want. But before we get started, I want to explain the difference between persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion is convincing others to help you get what you want using evidence, logical reasoning, and emotional appeal. Manipulation is convincing others to help you get what you want through deception or intimidation. It's important to avoid manipulation for a couple of reasons. First of all, people don't like being manipulated. So it requires increased effort to be effective each time you have another request. In contrast, if you're effectively persuasive and someone chooses to help you, it strengthens your bond with them. And that means they're more likely to continue helping you. So the first reason not to use manipulation is that it's less effective. The second reason to avoid manipulation is that it's kind of just a rotten way to treat other people. I don't know about you. I don't want to speak for anybody but myself. But for myself, I don't want to be a rotten person. So I try not to manipulate people. So next, I want you to think of a time that either somebody else convinced you to change your mind about something, or a time you did that to somebody else. And write a comment telling me all about it. This video builds on the concepts discussed in the previous video in the Introduction to Writing series, Essay Structure Basics. So feel free to go and review that at any point and then come back to this one when you think you're ready. To write an effective, persuasive, or argumentative essay, it's important to understand why the topic is important, why people should care about it. The challenge with this is that you don't always get to write about what's important to you. Sometimes the teacher assigns a topic. Or it might be something you have to do for work, so it's something for your boss or for the company. In each of these cases, the key to writing persuasively will be to figure out and understand why other people care about this topic. This is also an important skill. It's called empathy. Human beings are social creatures, but we're also all individuals. This means that while each of us has a unique set of likes and dislikes, passions, experiences, and skills, we also have an inherent need to connect with others. Empathy is what allows us to manage those sometimes conflicting needs without escalating into actual conflict. Well, when it works anyway. And if you do have to figure out why other people care, that will help you with the next step, figuring out how to make your audience care about the topic. If you've started with something that's important to you, please don't just assume that everyone else will already share your view. That's kind of the point of persuasion. And in order to be effective at it, you need to demonstrate respect for the different experiences that will have led other people to develop views that contrast and even conflict with yours. I want to clarify and emphasize this. Sometimes people will have views that you find to be very, very wrong. Like, holy smokes, how can you even think that way? Kinds of wrong. You don't have to pretend that you agree with them. In fact, you shouldn't. That goes back to the difference between persuasion and manipulation. But it's not effective to mock or shame them, and you should show respect for the people themselves and for their lived experiences that have resulted in what their views are. People don't believe things for no reason, and when you forget that, you become less effective at persuasion. So ideally, you want to begin doing some research before you even start brainstorming what you want to say or how you plan to say it. Think of it as pre-search. What evidence supports your idea? What evidence counters it? Why isn't there one solid point of view on this topic that everybody agrees with? Speaking of which, if there is one point of view that a large majority of people support over any other point of view, then the topic probably isn't a good one for persuasion. There's not much point in trying to convince anybody that the sky is blue, for example, or whether or not it's raining. So once you've done your pre-search, think about your should. In both persuasive and argumentative writing, you're trying to convince your audience that something should happen. Maybe a law should be passed, or existing laws should be more consistently enforced. Maybe your should is that a change that is being proposed should not be enacted. That should is going to be the core of your thesis statement, a one-sentence statement that directly expresses your main idea. This is the one concept that you want your audience to connect with and hopefully do something to promote. But to get them to do that, you need to convince them. The difference between a persuasive essay and an argumentative essay is the type of support used, which will affect the tone and the style of the writing. A persuasive essay relies more, or even mostly, on appeal to emotion, while an argumentative essay relies more or mostly on concrete empirical data. However, this distinction rarely applies outside of schoolwork, where you're trying to show your skill at a particular type of writing. So make sure that you're aware of which style your instructor wants you to use for a given assignment. In the media and in writing for industry or professional organizations, articles and essays that attempt to convince the audience of a particular point are more likely to blend persuasive and argumentative styles. You also find this in speeches, such as at political campaign rallies or TED Talks. It can be difficult to do this, though, and avoid the mood whiplash of bouncing back and forth between informational argument and emotional persuasion. That's why writing at school tends to focus on the styles one at a time. In any case, you do need to have evidence to back up your points. Unfortunately, because I say so, is really only a supporting reason when it's used by a parent. And let's be honest, it's really not all that effective at convincing the audience even then. Make sure to look at as much evidence as possible in your research, and not just the evidence that supports your position. Look for individual anecdotes, as well as larger studies and data pools. Be sure to review the information carefully to make sure that the conclusions that you draw are valid. Consider the source. What was the method used to gather the information? How recent is it? How many people were involved in the study or the survey? How did the researchers make sure that they used a broad segment of the population, that it wasn't just men or just women or just college students, for example? Or is it a more focused study that could help you understand, say, a difference in attitudes between college students in 1990 and college students in 2020? If the amount of information you have at hand seems overwhelming, that may mean you need to focus your topic more specifically. You're not going to become a climate change expert in a week, but you might be able to learn a lot about one aspect. Instead of researching the effects of fossil fuels, you might look specifically at the effects of electric vehicles as compared to standard gasoline-powered cars. On the other hand, if it seems like nothing or very little has been published about your topic, you probably need to talk to your instructor. You may need to rephrase your search terms or look at the subject from a different angle. Describe what you've been doing as clearly and specifically as you can so that your instructor can identify any potential problems. When you start going through the evidence you've collected, what stands out to you? What do you notice? Do you see any ideas or facts that come up repeatedly? Do different sources rely on the same or similar information? Those may be points to focus on. Other people seem to think that they have particular importance. But everything has to connect to and support your should, your thesis. That core idea needs to be in the back of your mind at all times. That's going to help you sift through the information and identify what matters most. You want more than just a list of facts and information from other sources. That's boring. Nobody's going to care based on that. What makes the essay truly yours is the way you use that information and how you respond to it. Your analysis of the research should explain its relevance to your thesis and how it shows that this idea matters and should be enacted or supported or whatever it is you're saying should happen. And once you've done that with your information, you move on to the conclusion, where you look to the future. Give your audience a vision for how, once they support your should, put your idea into action, the world will be a better place. Their lives will be more meaningful, more prosperous, and ultimately filled with joy. Be careful, though. You go too far, and you risk having them roll their eyes and go, yeah, right. So don't actually exaggerate. Be passionate about the importance of your idea. It matters. It really does. And you can convince your audience of that. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I hope you have best of luck, and I hope that you don't actually need luck with your essay writing. Remember, the more you practice it, the easier it gets, and the better you get at it. Don't forget to leave me a comment. Bye for now.